who, according to some of the proposals that have been made, he might be owning Kenya pretty soon. We'll find out why in the world is this such a big deal. In the studio with me, I have James Mlamba Karibu. And then I also have George Ngaira with me in the studio.
Thanks for having me, Fred.
Now, very, very interesting things happening. I mean, at one point, maybe we can discharge off the political and then we get into this. At one point, it looked as though Gachagua was actually going to hold on to, you know, the Mount Kenya party and all that. I mean, and the support there. But now, if you look at what is happening, Mount Kenya is dividing, and more political leaders are now siding with Kindiki. People thought initially it was, Dindi Nyoro, but now it turns out it's a battle between Gachagua and Kindiki.
And I thank you very much, Fred. And that's why they say politics, a day in politics is quite a long time, because things change, and the way we say in my home area is that things change.
Yes.
And they change day and night. So obviously we are now at a position where people are realigning themselves. This Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, is now on record. I saw another video somewhere where he was saying, by December this year, there's going to be a big decision. I think you heard him say that. And he was alluding to what is coming ahead of the next election cycle. It's no longer a secret that this Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is no longer reading from the same page with a lot of people within the ruling government. And Fred, I think I'm not a prophet, but I can almost appear like one, because I've told you for years now,
yes.
Almost even before the elections, I told you, looking at the personalities of the Deputy President and this President, one day, in the fullness of time, he's going to challenge this government. And I think we are almost there, because now it's very clear. He is where this current president was as a former Deputy President, when then you had people in the system who had isolated him. And so he picked up that and gained sympathy. And he was able to actually turn tables for President Uhuru Kenyatta in his very own home base. And I told you, I think one of the grand motivators of that campaign that showed that they were gaining traction was during the by-elections we had in Juja when our friend, the late Wakape.
Yes.
I liked Wakape.
Oh, Wakape was such a nice guy.
He was a nice guy, and he spoke very many languages at that particular time. And when, then he passed on, and the by-elections in Kiambu, they defeated the president in his very own home county, in fact, not just the region. And it was an indicator that things have moved. And I think we are there again, once again, because we have a deputy president from now a son of that particular region, who wasn't as popular as wasn't as popular at the beginning when he was coming in, because of the many factors that were mostly pointing to his own personality, story, and character. But now he finds himself isolated, but also at quite an opportune time, because also this government, it might not be as popular as it was at that particular time. There's a huge chunk of almost 3.1 million votes that this president got from that particular region. 3.4, sorry, the president got 7.1 million votes, but 3.4 million votes was what came from what you call the Mount Kenya region. And a big chunk of that have since changed his mind. And this deputy president has read the signs, and I think he's chosen to side with the people. And so we are back again to where we were before, where then you have elected leaders siding with government and then leaving the masses to make their decisions. And
what we're seeing is just elected leaders. It does not represent what's happening on the ground.
You remember even in the last previous regime, all the governors from Central Kenya were in Jubilee. They all lost their seats. There was not a single elected Jubilee member of parliament or governor or senator in what you call the native central region. They only managed, I think, in Meru, they got 2 MPs. And I think in Nyandarua, there was 1 MP that was elected somewhere in the middle there. Otherwise, it was a clean sweep for UDA. So clearly what the leaders who majority then were with the president might have not gotten it right with the people, because the elected leaders can say one thing and the people could have a different opinion, particularly for this particular government. And it's not a very new phenomenon. We've had it in Western Kenya. You know, in Western Kenya is the only place in this country where 2 vice presidents, we've sent them home. Our whole vice president, Salim Davadi, is defeated by a local preacher called Akaranga. campaigning with an old Toyota Corolla. He beats a sitting vice president with bodyguards and V8s and all that. You understand? That only happens when you fail to read the mood of the people and fully bank on elected officials.
Now, if you look at Gachagua, does he have the political intelligence and the political ability to mobilize on the ground as Ruto had when Ruto was in the position Gachagua is right now?
Before I delve into that, this is the Star, I think. The Star on page, which page is this?
Almost 4.
Why does it say 4 and it's not page 4? Well, the page that has Gachagua. So it reads interestingly on paragraph 2. I'm going to go through it quickly. Truth be told, the seeds of this explosion of primitive tribal instincts had been sown almost immediately Mwai Kibaki took power in January 2003. Surrounding himself with political homeboys and tribesmen, Kibaki created a power system that alienated members of Kenya's other communities. But worst of all, he went on a vindictive offensive, culling members of defeated President Moi's community from government and the security services. It made the 2007 elections about more than just a ballot.
Yes.
So it seems here, well, Edwin Sifuna is on record saying that Kibaki may have achieved everything, but he forgot to deal with tribalism. And is an enabler of tribalism. And that is, I think, detrimental to his legacy. It's part of the reason why I do not see him as so good after all. But then you would say economic-wise, he's a revolutionary.
Yes.
And he pushed us through leaps and bounds in just a few years, in 10 years. What Uhuru failed to do. Kibaki transformed a country as bad as as Moi had left it. Well, I sometimes confuse Ruto and Moi because they are one and the same, a mentor and a mentee. So, you see, Kibaki took over a country that had a dilapidated economy. Worse than whatever Gachagua and Ruto have inherited from Uhuru.
Yes.
And Kibaki was able to turn that around in 10 years. But with all his successes, he still failed at tribalism. And I say that because I see another Kibaki in Gachagua. Not in terms of performance, but in terms of tribalism. And it is that bad. And while Moi is still another enabler of tribalism. And it goes way back to Jomo Kenyatta. So you see, we have leaders like Gachagua who I would say are so primitive to the point they would still push tribalism.
Yes.
Because any politician in Kenya now who's pushing for mobilization along tribal lines is lost. I mean,
he's lost.
How can you not read the signs? We have a generation here that tells you we are tribeless. That doesn't mean that I'm not Kamba. That doesn't mean that Ngaira is not from the tribe he is from. That doesn't take away the tribe you come from. We're just saying we are tribeless, but the real meaning of it, it's actually metaphorical, is that I have a tribe, but it doesn't matter. That I am non-tribal.
And Gachagua is seemingly unable to break away from that?
Because he has understood in his old way of politics, before the Gen Zs came up and told him it could be done differently. He thought, and most politicians still think like him. They may not speak like him right now because they read the mood of the nation, but they still think like him. Kalonzo still thinks of Kamba votes. Raila still thinks of Luo and Luya votes. Wetangula still thinks of votes from Western, probably from his county, because he does not command the entire Western region. And you see, leaders from the Somali counties, Wajir, Garissa, still count on support from the Somalis.
But all politics is local. Even if we operate from that aspect of tribeless and all that, you have to have the local. And the local in Kenya is ethnicity.
A support base doesn't have to be about tribes.
Yes.
It can be about regions. I think to myself sometimes that it would be better to push regionalism than it would be to push tribalism.
Yes.
Because you would say, as people from the coast side of this country, does not matter that we are Mijikenda or we are from this community. As people from the western side of the country, the western side could still include Nyanza. I mean, it's all part of Western. Rift Valley, Nyanza, and the Western, whatever they call Western, is all Western. Wajir, Garissa, Ukambani to the coast, is part of the eastern region. It doesn't be.
It doesn't mean
have to
that
be
your support based.
Doesn't have to be a certain tribe, yes. It could be 3 tribes or 4 tribes, that's one part of the country. Because that is how support bases are in the UK and the USA.
Yes.
Where you come from, the western side of the United States, the northern side, the southern side, because they have different interests. The coastal side has different interests for
Yes.
the northern side of pastoralists.
Yes.
So I'm thinking to myself, we've pushed tribalism to the corner. And we should not recalculate this. I mean, we should not regurgitate this back to our politics.
Yes.
We've already moved past it.
Yes.
When we are trying to move past it,
Yes.
why does he keep pulling us back there? And you see, Gachagua has the funds.
So
to push tribalism.
so basically, Gachagua will find it very difficult. He does not find himself in the same place that Ruto was, because now it looks like Gachagua will have to rely on one community per se, while Ruto seemingly had a huge support base from different people.
See, before my senior year goes, I would want to say this, that Gachagua is reading from Ruto's playbook. That Ruto started campaigning as early as it was 4 years before the elections.
Yes.
And it is about elections in this country. It's never about service delivery.
Yes.
Everybody wants to be close to power.
Yes.
Gachagua wants to show Ruto that he is able to run for president by himself,
Yes.
so that Ruto has no option but to pick him. He wants to show Ruto that he can galvanize the entire support of the Mount Kenya region, so that Ruto has no option but to pick him. Because Gachagua has the resources,
Yes.
and is now trying to build the influence. On tribal lines, Ruto built himself on tribal lines. The Asla narrative was a facade.
Yes.
It was still about tribes. It was still about Mount Kenya
Yes.
and Rift Valley coming together as
Yes.
2 senior communities that have the numbers in this country to deliver a victory to him. And that is exactly what Gachagua is doing. He is courting Mount Kenya and galvanizing support from the entire Mount Kenya region, so that he has enough numbers, in quotes, to
Yes.
bargain with anyone. He can bargain with Kalonzo for Kamba votes. He
Yes.
can bargain with Raila. He can
Yes.
bargain with Ruto. And politics changes every day. Gachagua may vie for president and use his numbers in Mount Kenya to bargain for a seat in government.
And so when Gaira,
Yeah.
political intelligence and ability,
Yeah.
can Gachagua pull what Ruto pulled?
2 things work for Rigathi Gachagua and for any other politician going to any contest. There are 2 very important factors,
Yes.
numbers and resources. So that anybody that has numbers and resources clearly has a head start in any engagement. And so Rigathi Gachagua, coming from the mountain, almost 4 million votes,
Yes.
puts him ahead of the curve. Even if he was to go to any race and run alone and only get votes from his region, he won't be last, friend.
Yes.
He won't be last. You understand? He will be
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes.
You know, just like our friend Dida, who unfortunately now is in jail. He showed up only at the presidential debate.
Yes.
Was he last?
No, he
He wasn't, and he only came up the last time.
Yes.
So you can imagine a billionaire like Rigathi Gachagua, who can have some loose cash of about $250 million in some account somewhere for a president to freeze.
Yes.
She'll just tell you what it means in terms of resources.
Yes.
And then he's backed by the likes of Jimmy Wanjigi, another extremely well-resourced individual from that region. You know, he doesn't just represent himself, especially now that they've converged again, including with the president. Those guys have the billions to run a presidential campaign, more than I think any other community except Somalis and maybe Asians. But those ones are not largely national politics.
Yes.
So he comes in with very serious assault rifles into this particular race. And then the third one, most importantly, is that he's a deputy president. So he enjoys a lot of state security and goodwill. So
But how does he wipe from himself that tribal tag? Because that's stuck on him like glue.
Fred, you know, character is something you're born with.
Yes.
You cannot just wake up and say, I've now changed. It takes time and a lot of goodwill to be able to change that.
Yes.
And Gachagua comes from a long history of the old kind of politics.
Yes.
And Fred, I've said it the other time, and I repeat it, and I think my brother James has just captured it. They have failed to read the mood and restore it to the Gen Z movement. And it will be seen the day we will face some sort of electoral competition, I think in the by-elections, where people would sit and assume, okay, this is Central, this is UDA, or this is Western Kenya, because we have around 11 by-elections. We have 3 constituency races, and I think 8 ward races, including my own county. We lost an MCA who was stabbed to death. So we will have a by-election there, which is currently being considered an ODM county, isn't it? But that will be the first time this president will face the electorate against all the accusations that he has. And Fred, we are now living at a time where we have young people, and James could not have put it any better, that all of us have to come from somewhere, isn't it? Even in the US, it's there. There are people whom you see, this is a Latino, somebody called Ortez, but you can tell this is a Democrat. That's the old profiling. And these are liberals. But you see, there's what you call a swing vote, that ratio of population that now are open-minded and want to see something different. Yeah. If that group grows to even 20 or 30%, they can swing an election. Yes. Because somebody would have sat and said, oh, we have 3.4 million votes in Central. Yeah. Could be a million of those have changed their minds.
But if you look, and we'll be talking to another Gen Z who's joined us, he's called Godfrey Getahi. Yeah. If you look at the character of Gachagua
and whether or not it can
and Gen Z, is there anywhere they can manage?
No chance. He's banking on what Jens has said, a regional thing. And I think when you listen to Jimmy Wanjigi, what he said, which is not so far off from what Rigathi Gachagua does, Jimmy Wanjigi agrees that this country has had too many presidents from its region.
Yes.
But then he has a personal score to settle with the president.
Yes.
So he knows, all I need to do is be on the ballot.
Yes.
You understand? So that whatever number of people that he gets from his region, it rubs off, like a spoiler. It rubs off what this president is depending on. And President William Ruto cannot afford to lose even 1 million votes. Remember, he won with only 200,000.
Yeah.
For him to recover, if he loses 1 million votes in Central, he has to sit back and say, which other region can give me 1 million votes? Which one? And you can't tell. It's not Central.
Let me bring in Getahi right now. Because I'm looking at a situation whereby this election is going to be very interesting. It's going to be an election where, Gen Z, hopefully, are going to play a major role in determining how this goes. Getahi, karibu kwanza.
Thanks so much, Fred.
Yes. You guys were out there speaking and, campaigning against so many things during, the recent demonstration. What is the possibility that Gachagua can hive off support from your generation?
You come out loud and clear, Fred, so thank you so much for the opportunity. On the possibility of Gachagua having to hive votes, it's highly possible, and that's highly possible, and that's why there are a section of MPs who are detaching from Gachagua's way of thinking, because someone somewhere.
Let me get this. You say it's highly possible, or it's
highly possible.
He can hive
votes from Gachagua had come to a section of Gen Z. He had already integrated himself into Gen Z movement by calling himself Rigiji, going with the narrative Rigiji, and going with the public opinion, I'm Rigiji. No, now the way Gachagua is being played, right now a section of Kenya Kwanza MPs and Mount Kenya MPs are hiving off so that they can shift the focus from Gachagua to CS Kithure Kindiki.
Yes.
That is destabilizing the factor of the votes, the X number of votes that there should be may come the next election.
Yes.
So having possibility of Gachagua having votes is very possible, and which he does and executes 100%. He can be able to be on a very competitive side. Yes.
You see, we are looking at the two political parties are going through some metamorphosis. When you look at Kenya Kwanza, you have Gachagua who is being isolated.
Yeah.
When you look at ODM with the seeming exit from politics, local politics, so to speak, of Raila Odinga, now we are looking at Orengo Nyong'o with Raila seemingly putting his hand on Nyong'o.
Yeah.
Orengo, a guy who's backed him for a very long time, seems to be, being sidelined. What exactly? It looks as though there is a complete shakedown of the mindsets that have been these political parties.
Exactly, Fred, and it's going to hit them very soon. Remember, Orengo was born in 1951. He's 74 years today, not far off from the 80s. Anyang' Nyong'o himself is about 77, so he'll be around 80 in the next 3 years. All these are old hands. 60-70% of the voters in 2027 will be under 40. They're almost half.
60 to 70%.
Yeah, they'll be under 40. Gen Z is about 29%.
Yes.
And then you have the millennials also becoming around 30%. So when you merge the two, it means when you look at 40 and below, it's going to be almost 60% of that vote. And we are at a time when Fred, I was here with you, and when we were going live with the Gen Z, and you would see a young lady on TikTok going live with 100,000 people. Those are like 5 stadiums. You understand?
Yes.
On a small phone with maybe data for 100 shillings, and that changes the game. Because it means the same way President William Ruto would be having a rally at Rirungu Stadium, is the same way that small lady goes live with also another 5 stadiums on her phone. So it's a competition in as far as our campaigns are concerned. And that is going to be the turning point of these coming elections. Because back then, none of these young kids would never even afford to have such an audience. And you can imagine just 10 or 20 of them being able to do 100,000 people. It means in a day you're doing an activation of 2-3 million people. Fred, that is a game changer. And so these people have not read the mood, including ODM, as you mentioned, because for the record, I'm a life member of ODM. I know that party very well. And so it's unfortunate that the party leader has not read the mood of where the country is going to. And it's going to be tested soon when they not even 2027, James. Is when we begin to have some election. Because there will be a by-election in his home county of Siaya. Wandai has stepped off. There will be a by-election there. It is that same Siaya that David Ochieng has now repeatedly defeated ODM, isn't it? It's that very Siaya county. For the first time, Fred, since independence, Raila Odinga's own member of parliament, Zachary Ochando, is now in UDA. You understand?
Yes.
It means, for that
there's a wind of change.
Yeah, he has, because they've read the mood. Never has it been, not President Jomo, not President Moi, has he had 12-15 members of parliament from Nyanza region completely working with the president and moving around with the president comfortably. Raphael Tujas, SG of Jubilee, could not even set foot in Kisumu. You understand? Nowadays, Owalo and all the ODM turned UDA MPs are comfortable in Nyanza because people have changed their minds. I was there, Fred, when we lost that election in 2022, and that Kondele area, for those who know the flyover area, it takes you to a place called Kawash, and I was there with some people. That was the first time I didn't see heartbroken people in that election. They just
this recent
2022 election.
When Raila lost.
Yes. The guy
people
was,
were not heartbroken.
People said, at least we got devolution and we have a governor.
Yes.
It's now for us to deal with the Nyong'o and make sure he serves us. Once you begin to have that number, it just needs to get to a critical base. 20-30%. And they would swing that election because this president narrowly made it with 200,000 votes. So he cannot afford, first of all, to lose his base the way we are saying. 1 million votes lost in Mount Kenya. I don't know where this president can recover in the other regions. There is nowhere, not in Nyanza, not in Western, not in Coast, for him to say that he would win an election. Some people are thinking that way in the 80s when we used to do the Mlolongo line where you can send an OCPD to disrupt an election. It's not possible anymore.
Yes.
So Fred, ODM, just like this president has failed to read the mood, Fred, a young man was blown, they blew his head off. Right on international live media during the Gen Z demonstration at just right in front of Parliament. His mother, who comes from somewhere in Machakos there, said his son worked in a butchery somewhere. And he knew on that day that his son was at his workplace in the butchery, only to see his head split.
They decided to butcher him.
Yeah, then right in the middle of the international media. And then what happens? The president goes and gets old Wandai, old Oparanya, all that, then brings them in government.
So what's wrong? What's wrong with Nyong'o? What's wrong with Orengo? What's wrong with the?
I have a take on this.
Yes.
You see, Nyong'o is Raila's proxy. And
Nyong'o is Raila's proxy.
Yeah. And I will say it here on record that Raila preferred the situation we have on ODM right now of choosing a successor is the same situation Ruto found himself in 2022, choosing a deputy president.
Yes.
So you see, someone as powerful as Raila wants to have someone they can control.
Yes.
Someone as powerful as Ruto wants someone they can control.
Yes.
And they thought he would control Gachagua.
Yes.
And that is why he got it wrong. Raila thinks he'll control Nyong'o because Nyong'o has shown by temperament, by his character, that he is a loyalist and one at best. And he does not have ulterior motives. And he is not motivated to grab ODM from Raila Odinga.
So the fear is that somebody, if he gives Orengo, Orengo might walk away with the party.
Raila has been having a hard time making that decision.
Yes.
They favored, I think, Ida Odinga, the wife to former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, preferred Opio and I. This was in 2021.
Yes.
Raila himself preferred John Mbadi, but he was hesitant with Mbadi because Mbadi is combative. And Mbadi has been on record opposing Raila on decisions he thinks the party shouldn't take. Babu Owino is on record opposing Raila Odinga, going as far back as Uhuru Kenyatta's time. See, Sifuna plays in the middle. But these are people Raila thinks he cannot trust with power. Same as Joe. Joe has threatened to form a Pwani party. And Raila now sees Nyong'o as the only neutral candidate here that he can trust with this party.
But can
when
anyone,
he's in this
does anyone right now in ODM have such influence and that he can be able to move such a critical mass as to walk away with ODM? Do we have any individual in ODM right now who can command that kind of a force?
You know, as you're trying to ask the question, I'm trying to look at the various candidates and the various parties and the various people in ODM.
You have Sifuna, you have Nyong'o, you have Orengo, Oparanya,
Wandai.
But these are guys who are now in CS's position. So
yes.
They may not necessarily move masses the way Raila moves masses. That's why if Raila wants to back a candidate, he will have to employ all machinery so that he can back the candidate to take the ODM position. Because let me tell you something, in this country we have something called, people like to move with the masses. So when you see a thing like the Gen Z movement came about because of masses. So when you see that Raila Odinga is backing a so and so candidate, we'll tend to differ. We'll tend to ask the question, why is he backing this said candidate? I'm not saying that the people who are in ODM party positions are all of them influential. Raila may tend to look at who will I puppeteer when I'm away from local politics.
So it's basically looking for somebody he can be able to puppeteer.
Yes, he can be able to puppeteer because he will be looking at his own interests. And his interests may tend to differ from people who may sometimes see his politics, his leadership positions not working for their interests. He wants a person who, when he says jump, he will jump. And a person who is ready to do anything for the party leader. And time again in Kenyan politics, we have seen that loyalists, as I can call them loyalists, who are always 100%, loyalists tend to be rewarded. Now, on the term of, I think when you're backing Orengo, I think backing Orengo for me is like puppeteering game, when I've said earlier. When you're backing Orengo, you tend to shift away from local politics, but not entirely. You will tend to be into local politics. You will be away, but inside the game. I think you can understand what I'm saying. Yes.
But if you look at Orengo, Orengo won elections without campaigning, simply because of Baba.
And his stature in the party.
I think without Baba, Orengo would not have won the elections that he...
Very true, but also, Fred, look at the history of Orengo. Orengo came in 1979. He was only 29 years. I think was the youngest member of parliament for that particular year. And that was straight from university. He's never had any other job in his life. You know, he left campus and went into politics. And he was lucky to come in at that particular time. And you see, he survived through all the 80s and the 90s. way even before Raila Odinga became a politician, you know, in terms of experience and just ability to mobilize people and rally national causes. He was already doing it on his own, you understand?
Yes.
So he has that personal talent that has now over the years been solidified. The people would agree that he's a real politician.
Yes.
You understand? And so, but and clearly he's still a first-term governor, so he has intentions of actually running again.
As
and like
governor.
Nyong'o as governor,
Yes.
so this is an ongoing politician, which is completely different from Nyong'o, because Nyong'o said he's not planning to be a president. You know, he in one of the interviews actually had him say that, you know, after he finishes to serve the people of Kisumu, he would even prefer to go back to class and become a professor. And he's a 77-year-old man. He'll be 80 years in that particular time. That's quite an age.
Yes.
So I think it seems like the best bet to hold the brief for Raila Odinga, because then he looks like he's an ambitious and he's a long-time ally of Raila Odinga. So that could be Raila Odinga's biggest motivation for him to hold the brief for the party, because you know, we can plan sometimes in life, but God could have different plans.
True.
And so he looks forward to probably ascending to AU and all that, but then he also understands that things sometimes they change, and he could come February, he could still be an ordinary member of the African continent.
Yes.
And so he needs somebody that can hold the brief for him
Until he comes back.
until he's sure, you know, until he's sure that he's transition to the next phase.
Yes.
But Fred, I think for ODM, and just maybe to conclude on this particular topic, is that ODM and Kenya Kwanza and the leaders currently within the political sphere right now must now be able to read the mood of what is happening in the country and the new voter that is emerging from the masses and how they see things. And I think they've both political parties, coalitions have failed to read the mood. And I can't wait, maybe, hopefully we have the IBC in the next 6 months, so up to around March then. So in one way or another, we'll have a by-election next year, Fred. And I think in those by-elections is when we begin to see the true test of what it means for a young lady to be able to do the 100,000 people from a phone and what it means to turning up in vote. If I can have 80,000 votes, surely, if I'm only working with 60 polling centers, that means I can get feedback from all the stations.
What's in Yangaira here is saying is that the upcoming by-elections will be the litmus test of tribalism and of uncouth, primitive versus liberal and open-minded.
Yes.
And I will not be shocked to see Gen Zs vying in those by-elections.
Even as
And if I come from those places and I have no interest in that seat, I will vote for them. And I will campaign for them from wherever I am. If you are vying in Wajir and you are Gen Z and you have a track record, I am going to campaign for you. We need you there. And please do not be like this guy for Jichopevu. Please do not be another Mohai. Please do not be another Jaguar. I mean, well, Jaguar had no track record. Silikuwa tu kuvuka border. But do not be another Jaguar. Do not be another Jalango. Jalango now knows all the corridors of State House more than Raila. Raila has been on those corridors for years. I mean, as Prime Minister, I was frequently in the State House. I am thinking, before we put down a close to that topic on you say political puppeteering, as George has put it. You see, this is the same thing that happened with Kindiki and Gachagua and is happening now. Now Ruto is favoring Kindiki over Gachagua because he thinks the president actually regrets some of the things, but he doesn't admit on camera. And now I am sure the president regrets picking Gachagua because the only reason the president picked Gachagua, and I said this in 2022 and I will say it again, it was about his deep pockets. Gachagua has the money. And he is a threat to government now because he has the resources to mobilize an entire region that commands more than 4 million votes. And that is where the problem is. Ruto did not in his calculations, think that this would come this fast. He did not see the division come this fast. Because, let's face it, his division with Uhuru started in 2016 and they still went to a second election together. This division jeopardizes the 2027 duality between Ruto and Gachagua, and it is very possible that they will not be on the same coalition. And that is why Gachagua is a threat now. And Ruto, who in the first place had a good chance to pick Kindiki over Gachagua, though Kindiki did not have the money, because Kindiki was voted for by the Central Kenya MPs and all the legislators and the businessmen from Mount Kenya. They favored Kindiki because they thought he was better at articulating issues and his temperament was more, say, neutral. But then Ruto decided to go for Gachagua, and now he thinks that Kindiki, who I sidelined, should have been my deputy, and I am going to front him. And Ruto has the money to front anyone. He has been propping up Kimani and Nyoro to oppose Gachagua. He is giving them the resources, everything. I will not be surprised to see them traversing this country with Kenya Air Force helicopters. I mean, and they are not entitled to them. You see, so he's propping now Kindiki to take over from Gachagua, so that he can split Mount Kenya from Gachagua, if possible, steal it from Gachagua, and give it to someone he thinks he can control. I saw Kindiki saying that there were no students who were lost in Hillside and Arusha. Was it yesterday? I mean, how can we believe Kindiki, this guy, when he said the Kenyans did not die in parliament, while we know the numbers, when he lied about the numbers of Kenyans that died in parliament, when he even attempted to lie that we were grabbing guns from the police and shooting ourselves. I mean, how do you believe this ridiculous man? He is a coward at best and a liar, and he's learning from his mentor. I think his mentor is Ruto, and he's good at lying. Ruto is consistent with lying.
Fred, one last line.
Yes.
We are also heading to a time where the public now, like in the American politics, where the publics are willing to fund political or political figures if they believe in them, and this is what is happening with the young Gen Zs, the Mularas, and they're able to raise $500,000 in a day on an M-Pesa line. That is enough to pay even for governorship for any race. That's why I'm telling you, the day Fred will face even a single election and even a ward election, and it goes the way it is, this president and both the opposition and government are going to read the mood of where Kenyans are.
Now, I want us to switch this. There's a gentleman from India called Adani. Adani has been in the lips of every individual. I remember some young man, a demonstrator, during the Gen Z demonstration. And this guy almost looked like a guy who had just come from the streets. And he was living. Young man, claiming, ameuza airport. Ameuza airport. Lazima arudishe hii airport. And now, the man at the center of it is this guy called Adani.
Yeah.
And it looks like he has tentacles in so many parts in our country that if we are not careful, he might literally come to own a huge chunk of this country. It's immoral.
You know, Fred, that is what we are saying, where we are at in as far as civic education. That young man did not look like he's from the street. He was from the streets.
Yes.
He operates around the bus station. So he's a street boy.
Yeah, he's a street boy.
He's a street boy. And
yes.
you can imagine when eventually they caught up with him, they said he was 17 years because they were trying to organize something for him. But he was not yet an adult. So they were saying he would be an adult around towards the end of the year. So I can imagine he's a 17-year-old street boy who also knows Adani and what is doing in his country. That tells you just the level of information.
Yes.
Because he doesn't have a smartphone, he doesn't look like he had
the boy was leaving.
He was very
my
passionate.
Goodness.
And when he was asked where are you going, he said, we are going to the airport.
We're going to the airport.
That level of determination is what this government is going to face going into the next election. Fred, we might not change fully in our voter dynamics. But I've told you, once we gain a critical mass of such numbers, of people who are just concerned, it doesn't even, the young man comes from Siaya, ordinarily you profile him as an ODM supporter. Yes. But he doesn't even know where ODM office is. He's just interested in what is happening in the country and be able to do that. And I'm very proud of him, and I pray that more Kenyans are like that so that we can begin to hold to account such leaders. Fred, when you look at this Adani deal, from the way it's been reported now, particularly from government authorities, Murkomen, who was the CS for transport, actually mentioned it, and he said, up until now, it's just a proposal. That was his statement. He said
even Chir yesterday doing an interview.
One thing Chir pointed out is that this thing should have been gazetted. I've been put in the 3 times. That was in the 23rd of July, in December, and early this year in January, which the then CS of Transport, Murkomen, failed to do.
Yes.
Now my question begs to ask, why is there only one company that was given, seems that the government is pushing to tender for that thing?
Murkomen did not gazette whatever he's calling a proposal, because he was busy telling us how much his watch costs. Well, for the record, mine costs I think 3K. How much his belt costs, and globetrotting to Dubai, Qatar, pleasing the Middle East guys because he was doing the bidding for Ruto. And we know these guys do the bidding for the president, and that is why they are indispensable. I mean, after all the vulgarity, the arrogance, and the show of opulence, Murkomen is still as he is today, and he's going nowhere. Hata tupige kelele for years. He does the bidding for Ruto. So does Oscar Sudi. And this is why we have a problem of recycling these guys into power. And to the Adani guy, you see, these are not new things. It is just now that my generation has opened its eyes. But when we were fighting for years, I mean, nimekuwa streets hata siwezi hesabu mara ngapi. I am a loyalist of Raila. Well, I've already unsubscribed. But like we are
already unsubscribed.
Yeah, like we are unsubscribing from Safaricom to Stan. But you see, when we had a dispute in elections in 2013, I was too young. I was in secondary school, but I was displeased. When we had another petition in 2017, I followed all the court proceedings. I have every proceeding written on paper by my own hand, like an answer in parliament. What this lawyer said, what this judge said, what this other lawyer said, what the LSK said, what the IBC lawyer said. I have everything written on record. If they were to tamper with stuff, with technology going forward, I have it in paper. And I am that passionate with politics because I understood that we are being played. And we have been played for a long time. And I am glad now that my generation has opened its eyes and they no longer want to consume dancing and twerking in TikTok. And they do not want to consume the show of opulence that was Instagram. And the show that was in Facebook of who dresses better and who has a killer pose, you see. Now they want to use every social media platform, surprisingly, even TikTok, to advance governance issues. They want to understand, how does my MP work? How does my governor work? How much money how much budget have they been entrusted with? And how do they use these funds? This political renaissance that we have in this country is quite surprising to many. And it is pleasing to me because I was willing to fight this alone for as long as it takes.
Let me ask you about this.
This Adani guy.
Yes.
So
with all this, with all the hue and cry that we are seeing, I mean, why go through all this?
The problem is, Adani is another Jimmy Wanjigi. And some people think Jimmy Wanjigi is as good as some people think Uhuru Kenyatta is as good. They are as evil, malevolent to the core, just like Ruto. They are the same. So the president is using people to get off some chunks of money from various sectors of government. And he knows he can't steal directly. He has to use something. He has to use a proxy. He has to pretend to be doing something so as to steal from the country. And that is what Jimmy Wanjigi did and does. He is a tenderpreneur, and he hives off money from various governments, and those governments eat off from the contracts he gets. So the president is trying to secure a deal with Adani, the same way he's trying to secure an SGR deal with China. It is not for our interest. There is no benevolence in it. In fact, there is too much malevolence than benevolence, because he has already figured out how much he's going to steal, and he wants to use Adani so that he can steal from JKIA, he will steal from Ketraco, and he will steal from any other parastatal that he is willing to do business with. And he wants to steal from Nairobi River, because he will put up a budget of around 100 million to pretend to be cleaning up the river.
There's a lot of claims. There's a lot of claims. You know, we can paint him, but we literally don't have evidence of him doing that.
Fred, on the issue of about Adani, let me divulge and delve deep into that issue. The state of our airport is one thing. If one plane makes a mistake to have a mechanical problem, planes are diverted either to Mombasa or either to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. So right now the airport, and if you have been to the airport, you see where they set up a tent. Yeah. It rains, especially when it's raining. It rains inside.
It literally
pours. Now, bringing Adani on board to do it will be done in three stages, the renovations. and we'll have a new terminus built. That's a good thing for Kenya. Although we are trying to paint our president as that image, as a bad image, that he's setting up Andani to come and then we'll be able to steal and such kind. We need an airport. The first thing we need.
The budget for the renovation of the airport is $1.8 billion.
$1.8
billion.
Yes.
That is equivalent to 285 billion Kenyan shillings. Tell me how we cannot raise 285 billion Kenyan shillings. It is another ploy to steal, and it is bad enough because they are going to steal for 30 years, and they are going to hold an 18% share into perpetuity of Kenya Aviation Authority.
Which they are.
It is that bad. We can borrow that money so that we can build that terminal and renovate that airport. We don't need to sell ourselves to Adani as slaves for 30 years because they get the license and the authority to import labor from India to Kenya, and they are going to fire those workers at JKIA at their BS at whatever time they think, and they are going to replace them with Indians. And the president tries and pretends to curb unemployment while he is supporting the sacking of Kenyans, close to 3,000, to replace them with Indians. It doesn't make sense.
Which I like to correct my brother. Right now they are renegotiating from the 18%. They were currently at 16%.
Why do they need to be given equity?
They're actually renegotiating because we are voicing it out. They renegotiated the finance bill and took it down because we went to the streets. Let me assure you, if we did not go to the streets, the finance bill would be low today, and we would be sweating off to pay for pads, to pay for whatever they were taxing, the eco levy and everything, the motor vehicle insurance. We would be paying that, crying through social media, but we would be paying. It has to be us going to the streets. It has to be us voicing our dissent in social media for the government to reconsider the evolution of malevolence.
Yes.
Right now, I was saying they are renegotiating from the 18% to 16%, as they are still renegotiating on the renegotiating table. One thing or two things I picked from the CS yesterday was that this is just an open thing. It's not closed yet. If you want to come out with your, if maybe you have, because this right now is a private partnership, private public partnership, yes. PPP, with the government. If you want to form your company and you have the power to come and bid against Andani, which is plausible right now. One thing I said I picked from the CS was that we do not have that capacity. Because this thing, and I'll beg to differ with the CS on that matter, lacking the capacity of 285 billion to these countries, just a small chunk in the ocean. That's a small chunk in the ocean to say that we cannot afford that 285 billion.
It can be done in a fist.
It can be done in a fist.
Yes.
Each president comes with his own manifesto in his own terms. Let me break it down, and maybe I'll help someone out there. President Ruto could say in this budget we could chunk a certain amount of we do this in stages, like 4 or 5 stages. In the end of his tenure, maybe he'll have done it to completion. Yes. Because in this, just bringing Andani on board, saying that the government will have its say on what he's doing in this country and controlling this and this, that is just a hearsay. Because he will come with his own machine, will come with own personnel, and then will displace of people who are right now having families and feeding off the airport. The workers who are there and do not voice themselves out.
And an 18, whether 18 or 16% stake, Fred, in a company like KQ
should not exist.
Fred, I have over time, not even because of this Adani deal, but over time, because I'm passionate about infrastructure projects, and we have also some ideas around it for my own internal projects. I've researched on airports a long time. You see, a decent runway of say 3.2 kilometers for just a decent commercial airport, you would cost you maybe at depending on whether you're doing an asphalt runway, which is just the layering of the bitumen, or you're doing a concrete road like what you have on Bagadi, where you build literally and then before you lay the asphalt. A concrete road would probably cost you 100 million, a decent one per kilometer, maybe 250 million. So assume you even go with that high cost of 150 million a kilometer for a concrete runway. Yes. wide runway, it means to do 3 kilometers would cost around 450 million. So a decent 1 billion would give you a very serious runway, and the kind of runway that would handle a huge commercial flight. Fred, for us to renovate all the 47 airstrips in the county that we have so that at least every county to have a commercial airport, which is an impetus to a big aviation industry there, because then the routes become many. It would cost you just 47 billion shillings. You understand? So for somebody to come up with such a mega project of about 300 billion almost, the way you're placing it, and only say that you're going to sink it in one in one particular airport here, with very serious ascension that then they'll run it for 30 years and they'll give 18% of stake to that. From the onset, that is a corrupt deal that no Kenyan should accept even such a proposal in the first place. For Kenyans that are informed of what it takes to do an airport, Fred, there's nothing miraculous about an airport. It's a transit point. It's actually a hallway. You check in. It's a bus park. You just check in. Check out. You check in and you check out. There's nothing special about an open, and you already have land. So it's not like they're going to any country to buy land. You understand? So such a project from the onset was laced with corruption, because with the deals, this picture on this newspaper represents what really happened. Is that somebody had collected something from the Adanis, and now he has to see that the deal happens. But then thank God to the new generation that we are in now, the level of information, because the most dangerous voter, Fred, I've told you, in this country going forward is an informed voter. Right? Is an informed voter. So I pray that this deal from the onset is done away with, because we don't need it. I think from our own internal resources, if we're able to cut government wastage, then we're able to raise funds to actually
we have to do away with the Andani deal. I heard the Africa Development Bank had expressed its interest. Now the government wants to sideline the African Development Bank, saying that it does not have an umbrella body which can...
They do not have a way of stealing and from the African Development. There must be a way of it.
An umbrella body that will come in to run the operations of the airports, the various airports. Now, that is one thing we'll have to ask the government. The Africa Development Bank had expressed interest that it wants to do these renovations, which is not expensive. 285 billion to these countries, as I've said, is change, pocket change too. As I've seen last week, an MP going to a politician going to deposit this amount of money that is when he's done a project and done 100% completion. So one thing. We are trying to move away from those people who want to eat from this Adani deal, because 30 years is a long time.
And I must say, CS Murkomen owes this country a lot of explanations.
To put it vividly, and to put it into perspective, whatever we call budgeted corruption is planning to plunder resources even before a project is done. And that is what we are against. That is the opaqueness, whatever Madam CJ was talking about. This is the opaqueness that we are asking government to be transparent about. We have so many public contracts in this country that have gone on record as opaque. We do not understand the deals, they are veiled in secrecy, and we have no trust in government to oversee any public contract on our behalf, because a contract has to be two-way. And the problem is, Jimmy Wanjigi has made it his business to remind us that the SGR deal is opaque. And with that to bank on, same as how he has crived time, is made his time to explain to us how we do not owe anything to other countries, how we do not owe any debt to China or to UK or to IMF and World Bank, because he has done a debt audit of the Kenyan public debt. So with this information, as a Gen Z, how would you expect me to believe the government with the information that Wanjigi provided, because he was played with the SGR deal, that the government negotiated for a certain percentage of money from the contract for just bringing the China Road and Bridge to do the SGR here. The government has a stake for bringing the China Road and Bridge to do the project here. It doesn't make sense that the government already negotiated for a commission from China to do a project here. I would understand if that comes from people outside, but the government itself, because I have heard some guys saying at Bunge la Wananchi that the China Road and Bridge company actually belongs to some Kenyans here. They have actually registered it with some Chinese names. So if we have that, we have another Adani company registered with an Indian name, working with Adani to give a certain stake to Adani, but it is working as a subsidiary in this country because they want to steal. And Adani is saying yes to the deal because they will gain something. So with that in mind, how can we then trust government with our resources and to enter into public contracts on our behalf?
Your closing comments. And we need, as you close, we need to focus now. All these things that are happening, how would a good leader have handled this?
One thing, we not see public participation. And that's why we have not seen public participation on that matter. And that's why the JKIA employees went on a rant because of lack of public participation. And one whistleblower who blew out this thing, what was he paid with? He was paid with the DCI after him. Because he is trying to see the best interests of this country, but there are people where some were seated, they want to control. You know one thing, Fred, you are being battered with. You are told that this airport handles about 8 million passengers annually. Now he wants to shift from the 8 million passengers to about 40 million by the time this thing is done. Telling us there is no other private public partner who can come in with the resources to do the work that Ndani will be doing. That is a joke, and a huge joke. You know, this airport just needs, I can I can even help the government without even being paid. We may even go for a loan because the equity, because there are people in this country who have the equity, and we need a certain amount of loan to be able to do this project, which is not a major project. Because with that, it means that Ndani will not control the stake. That stake for 30 years is a long time. It's a very long time.
Yes.
So my closing remarks is that we need to have people who are thinking of the betterment of this country, not their own individual capacities.
Okay. Let's go to you, and then I want to finish with him because he's the senior.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
So, let's start with Occupy JKIA. I was in Occupy JKIA. Yes. I actually took some friends to JKIA to occupy that airport. Twice. Twice.
Yes.
And we were met with two conditions to get into that airport. On that particular day, because the NIS had briefed the entire security apparatus in JKIA that some youths were coming here to riot, and they mean business. They already have seen us in street protests in Nairobi, and they understand we mean business. So there were two conditions. You either have to have a flight ticket or a gate pass. A gate pass means you work there. So if you don't have both, you can't get into the airport. So we came up with an excuse that we are getting into the airport to receive someone who's coming from outside the country. And they were like, well, if you want to receive someone, wait for them here at the gate. They will come pick you up here. Mwende penye mnaenda. So I found it hard to get into JKIA, and I have found it hard to get into JKIA twice. Unless you get there at 5 a.m. before everything starts, that means you have to wake up at 3 or 4.
So,
and the Kenya aviation workers failed us. I hope they went on strike when we were occupying JKIA, because they would have paralyzed the security apparatus in JKIA, and we would have gotten into the airport, and we would now have stopped this government. If a good leader wants to run this government, say have a better airport, better infrastructure, they can budget for whatever we have, and whatever we don't have, we can find a way of raising. Through taxation, through debts, through any other way, through parastatals, we can raise that money if benevolence is at the key. But the problem is evil to the root, evil to the core. It is about how much am I going to get, and how much am I what project can I come up with that I can hive off money and steal from the country?
I'm being told time is up.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mine is just very quick, is to urge the leaders that have been given an opportunity to serve Kenyans to continue, and appeal to them to continue sticking to the rule of law and be able to deliver their mandate, and also to plead to Kenyans to continue to hold these leaders into account, because the sanctity duty that they have, and because they're the taxpayers, and they demand all the answers from the government. I think I'm very pleased with the level of civic education that we have now, and like my brother here said, it's not that it was not happening before, it's just that now more people are now aware of how government runs, and then and I think if we're able to do that very well, we're able to hold our leaders into account, we'll be in a better place.
Yeah, I really need to hear Murkomen. Murkomen was the CS then. Murkomen needs to tell us, how in the world did this happen? and I think there's a body that is supposed to oversee the PPPs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're supposed to ensure that everything is done for the benefit of the nation. Where is this body that is supposed to oversee the PPP? What did they tell the government? We also have an attorney general. Before the government enters into any deal with an external party, the attorney general is supposed to be involved. What did the then attorney general, who is now, he's a CS, right?
Yeah.
What did the attorney general's office tell the government concerning the same? And what did the government do? I would also love to hear what the president says. And if they have failed Kenya, then they have no business being in power. And with that, we bring the curtains down on this show.